problems are endless. They're everywhere. We've got public schools teaching children that they can be boys or girls or switch genders whenever they want, all the while demasculating the men. Marxism, taught in our schools, brought into universities, now worked all the way down to the preschool level. All for the last 60 years, nobody paid attention, nobody listened. Now it's a problem. CBDC, central bank digital currency. They want to replace our money with digital money that's programmable, that they can control you with. The military industrial complex and everything that comes with that. Endless proxy wars that are going on that the United States funds who benefit no one but weapons manufacturers. ESG scores being implemented on a global scale, forcing corporations to do the bidding of the Marxists. No citizens have any faith in the election process anymore. That's disastrous. And I can go on and on and on with this list of madness. There's only one thing that these things have in common. They're all being operated by the same entity, and they can all be stopped with the same thing. Let's get into it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to write. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Is the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I got to tell you, I've been a little bit down these last couple of weeks. I didn't come on last week. My apologies to anyone who was looking forward to it. I just had too much going on, taking care of my family. My wife was working late. I had to cook, and it was just, I got back from work late. There were just too many things going on, and I just had to prioritize my life for a minute. But here I am, back in the saddle again. Do me a favor, comment, follow, like, subscribe. But more importantly, comment. I want to engage with you guys. Let me know at least where you're from, right? Where you're watching from. I definitely get some interesting answers there. So I would love to hear that. We're currently streaming live to Rumble, Facebook, X, and Rumble, Facebook, X, and the last one, YouTube. So anyway, let me go ahead and start to get into this. You know, my title for this one was a little bit crazy. So I'm saying that it's all sounding like noise, right? Everything is sounding like noise to me. And you know, I was sitting down and I was thinking about it, and I was ready to produce a video, and I'm still working on it. It's going to take a while for me to get it out there, but I wanted to talk about it because just as that's how I'm feeling now, it's just that a lot of this stuff that we're seeing today, you know, and the list go, and what's funny is I made a list, actually started to make a list, and it took me about 10 minutes, not even, it took me about 5 minutes to come up with about 25 or so, you know, issues or fire alarms that are being pulled around the world at the moment. You know, one of them, obviously, transgenderism, this affirmation of mental disability that continues to go on. You know, CCP influence in our education system. You know, it used to be just the universities. Now it's worked its way all the way down into preschool. Demasculation of men. You know, politicians, both sides of the aisle, you know, feeding inflation, right? You think you can elect your way out of this, you know, but then 100 or so Republicans vote for a toxic spending bill in the midst of immense inflation. Everyone is suffering because our money is worth less, and yet here we are, you know, all saying, well, let's just elect this guy, let's just elect that guy, right? And of course, you know, if you've been following, I talk about this all the time. Even Donald Trump, no president can save the nation. It's just not something. It's just not something that's going to happen. So I don't know. I mean, I was getting a little deflated about the whole thing, but of course, I understand the solution, but I know that the majority of Americans don't understand it. And I'll get into it in just a minute and why I believe not just that it's a solution, it's the solution, at least to save the nation. And it is my firm belief that saving the nation by saving America from Marxism, by ending this generation after generation hatred of America due to this made up history or reinterpreted history, like just putting an end to it and starting to create generations that understand the value of this country and understand all of it. You know, there's only it's the only way to get ourselves back on the right track. And I'll get into it. It's Article 5. I'll get into it in just a few. I want to continue with a little more of this list, though, right? We've got so far I'm up to 4, right? The politicians on both sides. We got the illusion that there's one side of government that cares about you. Of course, we know that's not the case. We've got voters on all sides of the aisle believing that election interference is a real thing. And whether you're a leftist and you think it happened in 2016, or you're a conservative and you think that it happened in 2020, either way you look at it, the entire population has no faith in the election system, and that's a disaster, right? That's just a disaster, right? We've got the media knowingly and lying about all of it, right? And we all know it now, right? I keep saying one of Trump's greatest contributions was forcing the media to wear it on their sleeve. It's obvious now to anybody who watches them what they're about, right? It's obvious. So, and what does that do? Why do I think that was such a big thing? Because now more people are looking for other sources of information. And fortunately, you know, the Glenn Becks of the world and others have already set up that infrastructure, although it grew tremendously, you know, after the fact. But this is where, you know, people are looking, Epic Times, people are looking to other places for their information now. Which is enormous. Because if everybody was still zombied out in front of the media outlets, it would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. I mean, before Trump, people thought when you told people CNN was just a left wing, you know, a branch of the DNC, they absolutely would not believe you. After Trump, there's just no denying it. There's no denying it, right? But I digress. Let me go on. We've got endless wars, conflicts being fought, you know, by proxy, for the most part, by the United States, benefiting only one entity, and that entity is weapons manufacturers. That's it. All of this money that we scatter around the world, it's all just a money laundering scheme to support who? Weapons manufacturers. Why would the government want to support weapons manufacturers? Because so many in the government end up working in weapons manufacturing for weapons manufacturing companies when they go and collect their sweetheart checks after supporting all these wars. That goes for the money we give to Israel. That goes for all of it. What do they do with that money? They buy weapon systems from who? From our manufacturers. That's who. So, I mean, but again, I don't want to spend too much time on any one. There are too many. We've got the United States military-industrial complex and everything that comes with that, right? Everything that comes with that, including the proxy wars, which I just got done mentioning. Confucius Institutes, poisoning the minds of our universities forever. And in some way, or whether they were called, the Confucius Institutes themselves started probably 2002 or something like that, 2005. But before that, there were other less connected organizations doing the exact same thing. So, and if you wonder why people are so sympathetic to Marxism, especially the university bunch, there's your answer. Fortunately, people have taken steps since to start removing them, but they'll be back under a different name. We'll figure out the name years later and then realize this has never stopped. Right? All right, we got central bank, digital programmable currency, right? CBDC. Here they're pushing this currency, another albatross around our neck that we know is coming, right? AI, another one, right? AI's another one. Again, a tool that could be used for awesome good, but is already being programmed in the ways of the Marxist. Its initial education is no different than our children. And it's going to behave the same way. Well, depending on your children. My children have not been indoctrinated. But that being said, that was a conscious effort for me And I had to come to it late in the game, but I went ahead and did it, and I'm successful with it, and I'm cool with it. But not everybody has. These animals running around college campuses came from somewhere. They have some kind of parents somewhere who either were indoctrinated themselves or have no idea that their children were. Still wondering why they came home after a $100,000 education hating them. ESG scores. Here's another one. And now we've got corporations forced to bow to Marxists or their funding will be cut off. Public corporations. The private corporations could give them the finger and walk away. But any company with a CEO are bound and held they're bound to the board. Every board of every major company in the country, I don't give a damn, name the label. Every major company in the country has people on the board who are there to make sure ESG gets upheld. And if the CEO doesn't like it, he's fired. And they find a new one because most of them are cover boys anyway. Citizen carbon scores, right? These will come with the... I did the one video, where the guy at the WEF is like individual carbon tracking systems. Like, no, they're not here yet, but stay tuned. We're working on it. like, just add it to the freaking collection. 15-minute cities, hate speech laws. Now, we don't deal with the hate speech laws in the United States, thank God, because we're not a democracy. Because we're a constitutional republic, and people should know the difference. I certainly scream it loud enough times. But because we're a constitutional republic, our lawmakers, even no matter how many people vote for them, cannot just do away with speech of any kind. Less the fire in the theater argument. Of course, we've got the World Economic Forum, the WHO, right? We've got the COVID lockdowns, the threat, and now they're talking bird flu, and who knows when that starts again, right? The mandates, which yes, were found unconstitutional, but the fact that they were even tried was a complete test run, and we all know it. We all know that behavioral experiment that just took place. Speech controlled, social media. I mean, look, I'm on 21 right now. I put this all together in a matter of 5 minutes. Right? Speech controlled social media. Do I know that well? Of course I know that well. Of course I do. Give me 1 second, folks. I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that I am getting the chat correctly. Because I see people's stuff popping up on Facebook, but I'm not seeing it in my chat. So I don't know. Having an issue here, so I should probably first take a look at the stats. YouTube, I never expect anything from, but we've got. Oh, Rumble is okay. Rumble's blank. So I don't know where the ones I'm seeing pop up on Facebook. It's got to be from our group. I have a group on Facebook, the Patriot Think Tank group, which I completely do not manage. I just let it go. I mean, Facebook does its thing, and whatever, but. If you want to be a part of a free group bound only by Facebook psychosis, but not by some admin, I mean, I literally put that group up under those terms, and it grew to like 1,500 to almost 2,000 people now. So if you want to join that, you can do that. I think there's a promotional on Facebook for it, but I think that's where those comments were coming from, and that would explain sort of why I'm not seeing them. Let me give one more. Look here. But how about this? How about I do a test? And anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's try to comment, folks. I'll stop it. If I'm not seeing anything, I'll stop and go back, whether it's the group or the main page. If you're watching from the group, just go over to the main page. You put your chats up. I can highlight them on the screen, and we can get into it. Rumble, I got you guys open door. So we should be fine there. Just run a test with Rumble, make sure we're good. Yeah, we're good. So just feel free to drop a comment, and I will be more than happy to respond. But let me get back. I got a few more on this list that I want to knock out. You've got, I left off at 21, the speech-controlled social media. The next one is the occult, right? The fact that so many of these things that are happening are tied to demonic kind of stuff that even if you weren't a person of faith, you have to look hard at this. And I am, but I mean, even if you're not, you have to look at this and be like, even if you don't believe in the devil, these people do. These people clearly do. I mean, the stuff that they're doing, just when you look at the, you don't even have to look that deep. Some of it's right in front of you, right? Like co-opting the rainbow for the LGBT movement. Like LGBT does not represent gays or lesbians. Okay, it just doesn't. Not as a movement. It just doesn't. And transgenders are have a mental condition which I pity them for it, and I want to help them. I certainly don't want to affirm it, but again, that has nothing to do with the L and the G. And but nonetheless, when you look at the symbolism around it, all right, the rainbow was co-opted from the Bible, right? Which was from Noah, right? And you've got, pride, right? One of the seven deadly sins. Like there are so many connections like this that go on and on and on, that go deep. The fact that they tell you, right? They tell you about things before they happen. People like me come on and scream about them, and then nobody listens, and then they go ahead and do it, and because they have to. Because a part of the occult, like a part of the deal, right, is that like people have to be willing. They have to agree to it. They have to know that it's happening and be okay with it. So that's why if you wonder why do they keep telling us these things in advance, it's why Hollywood predicts so much stuff, right? It's because you have to be told this stuff in advance. That's the way the occult works, right? So that's just another thing. But then you've got China's 100-year war against the United States. Not a fictional thing. It comes from the lips of Mao Zedong, and you've seen it play out. You've seen it play out. It's due to come to fruition in 2049. They're way ahead of schedule if we don't go ahead and do something quickly, right? And then lastly is just the overall fall of the republic. That's a 5-minute list, folks. A 5-minute list of all of the things we have to be anxious about. Now, I could go on. I could turn that list into 100. I didn't even mention the sex slave trade. How did I miss that? How did I miss that? Child sex slavery. How did I miss that? The border crisis, right? We're on 28 now. I just, boom. I could just sit here and just continually add to this list. And you probably have some things that you want to add to this list. You're like, you forgot these. Remember, I put this list together in 5 minutes. This was, and came up with 28 now, right? 28 different things that we have to be anxious about within today's society, with the global condition, etc. And I didn't mention climate change, right? Or the climate change cult, I should say, which is really the underpinning for allowing them to do 80% of the stuff on this list. I mean, look, here's the point that I want to make, right? Is that when it comes to things like hold on. When it comes to things like this, I get to a point, and this came to me, I don't know if you guys follow Cash Kelly, the Streetlight. He was I started following him when I was doing a piece on him because he was one of the ones from January 6th that was arrested, and he was getting some of his phone calls out were getting broadcast on the channel, but he seems like a really great dude. He started following my channel, which was kind of cool. He left some comments, and he's got a much bigger following than I do. I mean, I've got the 18,000 or so on Facebook, but everywhere else, it's 1,500 is the max. So, but I'm watching him, and he's putting up a post, and I don't even remember what it was at the moment, but it was another look what's wrong with our world type of post, and I just dialed out kind of instantly and realized, you know what, man? And I even commented like, honestly, it's all just noise to me. And what I mean by saying it's all just noise, I mean, we know that there's a globalist movement, right? And in the intro, I said entity, right? Because I'm a firm believer it all stems back to the CCP. But some people think it's the Rothschilds and whatever. So that's why I said entity. I believe it's the CCP because, well, they declared war on us some 60 years ago and nobody paid attention. 70 years ago. And nobody paid attention. And we all blew it off and we were all like, nah, we're the United States. That'll never happen here. Can't happen here. And then here we are. Here we are waking up one morning wondering how on earth did the government gain the power to to do COVID mandates and to shut down businesses and to allow people to riot in the streets, but at the same time shut down churches. Another another positioning for the occult, by the way. Like, how did this all happen? How did we get to this point? How do we have American citizens growing up in this country that think that hate speech laws are okay? Like, how did we get here? This is what everybody's asking themselves. And it all came really from one ideal, right? It started with the Soviets, but they couldn't stay in function and fell apart in 1990. But at the same time, in the background, always lurking was the CCP, always. With their ridiculous, they duped us into letting them in the World Trade Organization. They duped us into taking them in and befriending them, and we protected them from the Soviets back in Nixon's day. Like, all of these things, they come to us with all throughout these years with bad intention and big smiles. All living their mantra: hide your strength, bide your time. And it wasn't until Xi Jinping that it really started to ramp up, because prior to him, and again, Xi Jinping is just one more cog in the CCP wheel. It's not like, these people aren't elected, right? These people are just granted the next position, and they're all there for the one cause, right? Solidarity. That's, the name it, right? Comrades. They're all there for one cause. And their focus has been since 1949, when they took over China. Really before that, because Mao's quoted in 48 saying he wants to take down the United States no matter if it takes 100 years. So all of this time, right, slowly into our schools, all this stuff, here we are. Now, what do? Seems overwhelming, right? It seems overwhelming. And as someone who puts out content, I could have a field day with this stuff, and believe me, people are. People absolutely are. I mean, every little thing that happens, from the most irrelevant, like Marjorie Taylor Greene is my favorite with her little "let's impeach Joe Biden." Yeah, that's a productive use of your time. Like, Rome is burning, and you're running around you're running around friggin', hey, let's get ice cream cones. It's hot here. I mean, this is the kind of stuff people are focused on, and it's all noise. The bottom line is there is a very organized, very large entity, whether you want to say it's the CCP or they don't invite us to meetings, so no one really knows. Most of them, I believe, sit at the World Economic Forum, at Bilderberg, etc. Doesn't matter, though. The point is there's a very bad scheme being played out, and we need to turn it around. Well, what do we do then? How do you do something, right, that's going to fix all of these issues? Well, this is where the Article 5 Convention of States comes in. And you say, George, there are far too many. What are we going to have? 20 million amendments? My first response would be yes. And if you don't know what Article 5 is, it is what this channel is about. Stick with me. I always give updates. I talk to these guys in the organization. You can go and sign the petition. There's a link on my website at thepatriotthinktank.com. You could also buy these trendy tees over there, or you can go straight to conventionestates.com. I don't care. I'm not into the promotion game. Whichever way you want to do it. You can sign a petition, make yourself heard, but I'll explain to you quickly how it works. So Article 5 of the Constitution outlines how we can amend it. There are two clauses there. One, you may be familiar with. With the death of civics, you may not be familiar. So that way is that the two houses, House and Senate, will vote on the language of a proposal for amendment. If 2/3 of each body approve it, the language, they can present it to the states, in which 3/4 must be on board to ratify. So a large amount of agreement is necessary in order to amend this thing. The other clause was put there for a very specific reason. George Mason spearheaded it, but the reason why it was put in and agreed to without debate As in Madison's notes, it states non com. That's Latin for pretty much no debate, right? No discussion. And it's put there specifically because Mason thought, what happens if the federal government goes wild? What happens? They all were afraid of the federal government to begin with. There was a natural fear. This is why the Articles of Confederation were created first. There was a natural fear of creating a strong federal government because governments tend to grow. And when it grows exponentially. Whether it's slow or fast, it doesn't matter what period of time. The point is, they don't get smaller. And they knew this. And Mason's concern was, well, if they got out of control, what amendment would Congress propose that would wield its own power? And if everyone, I wasn't there, right? No videos back then. But you assume there was a chuckle because there was no debate. Everybody just saw the logic in that and put in the second clause, which allows for 2/3 of the states instead of 2/3 of Congress to go ahead and propose to go ahead and call for a convention, in which case they will assign commissioners. You may have heard of them called delegates. They will assign delegates to represent their individual states. And those states will go and convene it. Those delegates will go and convene at a convention. And at that convention, and I got someone just said New York is joining from Facebook. Sorry, guys, I'm not seeing the chats from Facebook coming up in my thing, and I'm wondering if I should try and open a Facebook page and test that out. But regardless, let me give a test here and see. I think it's all coming from the group. No, I didn't get it. Oh yeah, I did get it. All right, it's coming from the group then. That's where all the action is at. All right, so let me, why don't I do in multiple comments? So we got, okay, I see. So Norm Sanders, Paradise, California. Viola Demarick had said that New York City joining. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think she means the broadcast, not the convention. But we're working on it there too. We had there are over 20 states, but let me get into what it is. So these states will select these commissioners, who will then go and debate the topics. Now, the topics have to be predefined, and the current movement, with 19 states already on board, we need 34. So if you're thinking, oh, we're starting from scratch, we're not. All right, we're not. There are 19 states on board now. There are resolutions being heard in 20 states today. Now, just imagine if people were activated in all of those districts across the country to get to their legislatures and let them know. Right? Imagine you're a state legislator, right? Your district might have anywhere from 3,000 to 100,000 people in it. And for the larger states, most of them have, somewhere in between. But you go ahead and you start getting these letters and these notifications. There's a wave of stuff telling you to support this resolution for Convention of States. At best, it will get you to start reading and take action and move. We could literally call it now. But let me go back. So the commissioners go ahead and they debate the topics. The topics for this particular one are term limits for all federal officials, not just Congress, all federal officials. There's fiscal restraints. All right, so we're mad that 100 Republicans had signed on to this bill. Well, you know what? They can't sign on to the bill if it's in violation of the Constitution. The entire bill is null and void if it's in violation of the Constitution, and a balanced budget amendment is an easy way to do that. Right? One with some teeth. So there's the fiscal restraint. The last one is government overreach. So amendments addressing government overreach. mostly would likely come after regulatory agencies, as that's where the majority of that's the arm that most of these unelected officials end up legislating and creating law in the form of rules or regulations, but they're laws because they're punishable. And the key to all of this is, right, it's not even about those three topics alone. Will tackle all kinds of things. Now, the government overreach topic, it can be made clear that states have the authority to defend their own borders when the federal government is delinquent in its duty, right? So there are things right away that can impact, right? Term limits, immediate impact. Fiscal restraints, immediate impact. They're big issues that allow for a lot of cool stuff to come through. The stuff that I'm hoping for under government overreach, a single subject bill, a single subject amendment. Right? Any legislation that comes out of Congress can only be about one topic. And the information within needs to be germane to that topic. Right? And the omnibus bill is what that does, where they write a bill for veterans and then tack on all kinds of crap like the stuff Rand Paul lists out regularly, right? Like the sexual habits of Japanese quail while on cocaine, $100 million. All that stuff that gets tacked on the end, gone. And if you really do want to fund research for the sex habits of Japanese quail on cocaine, by the way, that's a real thing, as well as lizards on treadmills, another real thing, millions of dollars go to. If you want to go ahead and fund those things, then you need to have a bill, the sexual activity of quail on cocaine bill, that you have to vote for. Because you don't get to hide in the cover of darkness anymore. And then they turn around and use the bill and use our veterans as a pawn so they could turn when someone says, I'm not voting for all this garbage. And they say, you don't like our veterans. This has nothing to do with it. You don't like our veterans. They both do it, by the way. It's not a Democrat thing. They both do this in multiple different ways. So that's one that I'd like to see. I'd like to see the 16th Amendment repealed. I'd like to see the 17th Amendment repealed. You have to look those up if you don't know what they are, because one, I'll tell you what they are. One is the income tax, which was unconstitutional forever until they got a constitutional amendment and made overturned basically the Supreme Court's multiple decisions saying it was unconstitutional. Only one way to do that, and they did it. They got an amendment passed, they got it ratified, and then they lied their butts off to do it, and now we are where we are. Right? So those are some things that I'd like to see. But in the end, my point is, it's not even about that. It's not even about the term limits or the fiscal restraints or the government overreach. The fiscal restraints alone, by the way, would end Marxism. You'd still have the doop-de-doos running around not knowing, their head from their butt. But at the same time, they wouldn't be able to do anything because they'd have the central government. They wouldn't be able to get the type of central government power over the purse that they need in order for Marxism to even begin to start to think to work. But the point is not even those three topics. The point is getting it done. Just knowing that we have that muscle to flex. The reason why the government has gotten so dang powerful is not because they just violated the Constitution right and left, although in recent months and maybe the last couple of years, whatever, 2-3 years, the Biden administration, right? We know Biden's not doing anything, but the Biden administration has certainly pushed that envelope. But the Constitution itself has remained strong because there are some things you just can't do. And it's a problem for Marxists in the United States. But the reason the government has extended all these powers, now, the 10th Amendment is pretty clear that any power that the federal government gets, any power not explicitly given to the federal government in the Constitution, belongs to the states or the people directly. Anyone but the federal government. However, they've gotten knee-deep in education. They pretty much control education right now. Well, there's nowhere in the Constitution where they're allowed to do that. Well, they're now managing workplace safety and the environment and, I mean, you name it. And they're running it. How did that happen? Well, it happened because the Supreme Court allowed it to happen. And this right here, this large index book of about 3,000 pages, put right up against an actual constitution, are both considered the Constitution of the United States. One includes all of the precedent that the Supreme Court has bastardized our Constitution with, and essentially enumerated many of these powers for the federal government. They have no opinion on taxes pretty much at all. Anytime they come up with some wacky new tax, the Supreme Court's position based on precedent is pretty clear. Well, we've always just kind of given great leeway towards taxes. Well, you know what? The Supreme Court's not the final word. We are. And in the end, there's only one bullet in the gun. Okay? There's only one bullet in the constitutional gun that can address these types of things en masse and quickly. And it's amendments. It's amendments. There shall be, you put in something, I'm off the top of my head, but you guys could think it out. You put in something that says something around the terms of, all no agency or organization outside of direct legislators shall ever, create a punishable law, right? Right? Boom, your regulatory agency's teeth just got pulled out. These are the types of things, and there's no getting around these things, right? There's no, well, if we elect you next time around, it's going to be all Democrats or all Republicans, so now they're going to just undo it. Or you don't just, you want to undo it, you're going to have to get 38 states to ratify that. Good luck. Good luck getting 38 states to ratify bringing back regulatory agencies. There's no shot. There's no shot. And to the people who say, oh, well, Congress has too much to do things will take forever. No, Congress doesn't have too much to do. Not when you get back to what they're tasked with. Because what they're tasked with is nothing on the level of what they're doing. These committees and all this crap that they do, they're all committees over things, urban development. You have no place in urban development. You have no place except to give those good people back their money so that they can spend it the way they see fit. This is it. This is the only process. There is, outside of revolution, which never ends well. You can ask the French how much they like Napoleon. There's no way that ends well. So if it's not going, there's no other peaceful constitutional solution that preserves our culture and preserves our way of life. This is it. But no one wants to be bothered with it. Everybody wants to walk away and stay dumb. And when I am calling people dumb to some degree, because those that know about it and just don't care, like they can't even take the time to sign a petition and talk with someone from their district, which is how it works, folks. You sign the petition, Convention of States Action will send a letter on your behalf to your representatives, letting them know that you're on board. And on top of that, they'll call you. They'll give you a phone call and say, hey, how are you? And there's someone in your neighborhood. All right. So I had one podcast I was watching. I mentioned that he criticized the Convention of States organization because it was all broken down into districts, and it has to be. So the way this nation was designed to work, and the way it still works, if people will just start paying attention, is it works through your local legislature. You go to, because these are people that are easy to remove, and they're people that are easy to get in. They're small districts, much harder to fix a local election than it is a statewide or a federal election. Because you're not dealing with millions of people. There's only so much you can, like if everybody's riled up on the same issue, there's only so much that could be done to manipulate that. If you went and stormed the capital, your state capital, or even wherever you're living locally, and you guys show up in mass, they have to hear that, because they know they're gone if they don't open their ears. Even if they're against it, they need to let these people know why they're against it. And if they're against it, it's because they've been scared into it, and that can be changed with a little education and a little touch of the founders. That can be changed. But the fact of the matter is, the nation is designed to do that. Senators were appointed by state legislatures. Why? Because state legislatures were the most powerful entities in the country under the original setup of this nation. And these doop-de-doos bastardized it by passing the 17th Amendment and taking that power away from local. So now when you get a Liz Cheney who goes rogue to what her voters wanted, all of a sudden, her voters now have to wait years to remove her. That is not how the nation was designed to run. You go to your state legislator, you say, I want this guy out. And if enough people go to their state legislators and their district representatives and say, we want these people out, they pull them. And they put someone new in with the mindset that everyone just got pissed at the last one, so we better not make that mistake again. That's how it's supposed to work. And with the exception of being able to pull a senator, it does still work that way. This is how the nation is designed to work. And the bottom line is, if we all get together and throw, even if some of the amendments we want don't get ratified, it doesn't matter. The mere fact that we went through this process fundamentally changes the relationship between the people and the government forever. Forever. I mean, I'm talking monumental to the point where 250 years from now, they'll be talking about these moments in textbooks. That's how powerful this is. Because forevermore, the government will understand that we know we don't have to take their crap. And that we understand that voting them out, that's not necessarily going to fix the government. There's a game and a structure that has been put in place in the federal government of the United States that is far beyond anything that we had ever desired or wished to deal with. And you know, Mark Meckler talks about it when he talked about the Tea Party movement and how proud they were to overturn so many, you know, rhino Republican seats and get in some real people that they thought were going to make a change. And a few months later, those people came back like zombies, completely eaten by the machine. You could know the person personally, and the odds are they're going to rationalize and get themselves involved in the machine, doing their insider trading. I mean, the one thing I did on insider trading, Blaze TV, they did a documentary on it with that guy, Unusual Whales from Twitter, who follows this sort of thing. And he follows the trades of Congress people. And in doing so, started identifying a litany, a laundry list of Congress people, both sides of the aisle, no immunity. Nancy Pelosi was considered the GOAT. Like, she was one, the markets actually shift with the way she trades. Like, the markets actually react to her buying and selling. Like, that's epic. But the point, it's not just her. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on that list too. I think with her, she bought a grip of like Lockheed Martin and Boeing stock right before, like days before the Ukraine war broke out. They're all susceptible, all of them. And don't get duped by YouTube nonsense and these stupid talk tracks. Like don't get duped by that. Look at how they vote. And 100, more than half of the freaking House voted to fund Ukraine again. I guarantee you there's not one of those people's districts where their constituents were good with funding Ukraine. But they don't even look at their constituents. I talked once when Gates had mentioned when he was removing McCarthy, or when he was working to get McCarthy removed, and he was like, "Listen, the things that we demanded are things that my constituents care about." And it was the first time that I heard a House representative actually talk about their constituents. Dude's a unicorn. There's probably 10 or 15 people on both sides of the aisle in the whole House and Senate, for that matter, who actually give a damn about their constituents. But the House is a much more specific thing. It's a much smaller group that these people represent. So that group may sometimes not be in line with whatever the government message is. Well, unlike everybody else, he didn't walk he didn't walk that government message line. He walked the line of his constituents. That's how it's supposed to work. That's not how it works. And the overarching theme here, the main point, is that it's not about, the idea is we're supposed to be running, like we're delegating responsibilities to people who do not deserve the responsibilities. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We're delegating responsibility to people who are not deserving of the responsibility. And when you do that at a state level, it's far easier to fix than when you do it at a federal level. Far easier to fix. You ever notice presidents that come up just sort of pop up? Like, who picks these people? Trump aside, because that's kind of become, it's more of a symbol now than anything else. But like the average presidents that run, where do they come from? Like, does it not feel to you like they've been pre-selected for a path a long time before? Like we've lost. We want to blame these people, and yeah, they're guilty. The person who does the crime or the insider trading or the bad policy, sure, they're guilty for sure. But we point fingers at people, and then we have a process to lay down, to flex, right? To flex, and we don't use it. We don't use it. And it just makes absolutely no sense to me. So when I hear all these, every day, some new video about something, Biden did this. Can you believe they did that? Can you believe the DOJ did this? This happened here. Klaus Schwab's doing this. Did you hear what the Xi Jinping said about this? Did you hear they want to ban TikTok? All this nonsense, it's all noise. It's all noise. And it's all serious stuff. It's not like it's not serious. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's all coming from the same source. There's a root to this problem. It's not a million trees with a million roots. There's a root. The entire process that's going on today, designed to separate families, detach children from their parents mentally, right? Mentally, detach them from their parents, build their faith in teachers and schools, let the state take over, right? Distance people from religion. They've been at that forever now. I mean, the misinterpretation of church and state is just a bastardization of legality that has just gone on for far too long. But yet, we're not taking action to fix it. And I don't, I used to say myself, well, what action can I take? Now there's action. Now there's action that we can take, and we're not. We're just not taking it. And it's like, where are you supposed to go with that? Where are you supposed to go with that information? You should be going to your local representatives. That's where you should know what district you're in, first of all, and you should know who your representatives are. And you should be vocal. These are people you can go and meet. This is not another reason why they are the ones who are supposed to be running the real show. They're a body who has been given this power under Article 5 to literally framework collectively, right? Collectively, so it requires agreement. But this is a group, your state legislatures, who are closest to you. And when you look around the country, and I have watched many of these people speak, and I've watched many of these debates when the Convention of States resolution hits the floor, and I can tell you in virtually all of them, these folks are good people. They're not getting paid. They're not career politicians. They all work in the private sector. There's no, there's no, some of these legislatures don't even meet every year. I mean, that's where we're at with local legislatures. But yet, here we are. Here we are, still, still acting like there's nothing we can do. When the reality is, there's very much something we can do. There's very much, the fact that, the reason I get so angry at people being taught for decades and decades that we are a democracy and acting like there's no big deal to say democracy instead of constitutional republic, completely don't understand the difference of the two. Our Constitution holds firm, and frankly, despite a constant assault on it, it is held up. It's held up. They've had to go to using methods of trying to go through social media companies, which is also unconstitutional. Okay. It's also unconstitutional if they're being forced by the government to do it. But they've come up with these crafty ways of encouraging, not forcing, and being able to play with the rules a little bit. But eventually that's going to blow up in their face too. They still can't they can't stop Rumble from not censoring people. They can't stop Elon Musk. This is why he's such a big deal, because not only did he take over Twitter, but he bought it private. There's no board. No board. So there's nothing that they can do. And that's the scariest thing ever to them. That's the scariest thing ever. But here we sit with still the power to speak. Right? In the UK, they arrest people for saying the wrong thing. They can't do that here. As badly as they want to try, they can't do that here. And if they do try to do something shady, it has to be in the shadows, and if it gets discovered, it's a nightmare for them. Because the Constitution is held up. Because our elected officials cannot make those decisions. There's no elected official in this country that could turn around and pass legislation banning any type of speech. Doesn't happen. Doesn't exist. Because those aren't rights that they gave to us to take away. Those are rights that were given to us by God or our Creator. Or however, even if you're an atheist, you like the Creator on this one. Because the point of the matter is they're not given to there's the significance of that is enormous. And it's that very Constitution that I sit here week after week after week, despite the shadow banning and everything else, I sit here week after week after week talking about this. Because I have people from the UK, from Australia, excuse me, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Kazakhstan, reaching out saying, thank you for teaching me about the fact that this exists, because I too believe that if the United States falls, it's over for everyone. Because not everyone defines the United States by the actions of the military-industrial complex. There are many people around the world who still understand the value of the United States righting this ship. Even if they don't want the same freedoms, even if they're afraid of guns and they'll trade freedom for safety in some areas, that's fine. But they still understand the importance of having the United States be around and be strong. Because, while Reagan became popular for calling it a shining city on a hill, he was right. There's an obligation here to set the tone. And once that falls apart, like you can't re-educate those who have already been bastardized. You can't help them. Our universities, like there's a lot of work to be done in trying to undo. And when I say undo, again, you can't undo it. You're just looking at new generations and raising your kids right, and teaching them, while we work on cleansing these schools of these radical psychos, you got to teach your kids at home the basic moral structure. So when these guys get them at school, they know that they were ready for it. And they know that it's nonsense, and they either nod yes, or they straight up combat the teacher one way or the other, but nonetheless, they don't walk away believing any of this garbage. But from a political standpoint, Article 5 is the only one. It's it. That's it. There's no reason to be talking about anything else. There's no reason to be discussing anything else. It's more important than Trump. It's more important than DeSantis. It's more important than the federal. It's more important than everything because it encompasses the power that we hold. And if we never use it, if we continue to be scared to use it because we don't trust ourselves, well, then it's lost anyway, so you may as well take a shot. Rather than continue. Like, if you're that person who's like, I just want to be left alone, I don't do, everybody does politics now. There's none of this, I don't do politics. If you don't do politics, you're the problem. You're as bad as the psycho crashing windows in Colombia. I don't care that you don't believe in anything that they believe in. The fact that you sit back and keep your mouth shut thinking that somehow, like a child, if you just close your eyes, it'll all go away or it'll all work itself. It always has. It'll always work itself out. If you're that person, it's not going to work itself out. And when it all comes crashing down, you're going to be the one. You and those of your ilk are going to be the ones who are the reason for the fall. I believe it was Abe Lincoln who said, the only way this nation falls is from within. Because those people who sit back and don't want to get involved, don't want to say anything, sure, I'll put on my mask, just let me grocery shop, I don't want to say anything. Those people make the crazy people think that they're the majority. And they're not. They're not the majority. They're a gross minority that are getting a ton of television time, a ton of everything. But the reality of the matter is, not about whether the majority or the minority. The matter is when you know it's happening, and if you've watched this, you know it's happening. And if you have friends who you think are patriots and they love this nation and they love the country, and if you have friends like that, but they think Article 5 is just crazy, bring them on a live event with me. And drop some comments, and I'll be happy to address that person live on the broadcast. If every person, I don't care, because you may have Democrat friends who are not dootaroos, right? Like, you may disagree with them on a lot of stuff, but they're not like psychos where they believe men can have babies and, there are 9,000 billion genders and all that craziness. Like, there are Democrats who did not follow them off the rails that far. Grab those people. Get them on board. When polled, it was 74%, I believe, of Democrat voters that were not opposed to the topics of the Convention of States. Now, truth be told, it was 52% that were for it and 24% who just didn't know. But that's still 74% of Democrat voters who are not opposed to the topics. And over 50% that are for them actively. That's Democrats. Voters, not the politicians. There's a cash cow for the politicians. They're not going after that. But the local legislatures, they will. Not every, but a lot of local legislatures already have balanced budget amendments. These are easy things for them to ratify. They already have balanced budgets written into their constitution because they don't print money. You follow me? These things are common sense to state legislatures. They should be common sense to everyone. The fact that the federal government doesn't address it and refuses to address it is just simply unacceptable. And the courts are never, there's no avenue in court where you're going to get the result that you want. There's only one way to get this done, folks. One. And that way is Article 5. Till next week, I'm out.
And like that,